Hello everyone, I'm going to be taking the 8 values test today. Now this is something I did on a yearly basis in April ever since I started the channel in 2017, but I fell out of the habit of it. I missed it last month, so I'm doing it now. I've been doing mainly the war report, which has been going great. You guys really seem to like it. But I intend to get back into more regular videos soon, and what better place to start than seeing where I stand on some arbitrary test. So let us begin. Okay, instructions. You will be presented with a series of statements. For each, you will click one of the buttons with your opinion on it. Got it. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. With the direction of the past couple years, I'm going to have to say slightly agree. It is necessary for the government to intervene to protect uh, intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Uh, I would say there's no greater example of that than protectionism, than controlling the foreign goods in the market, as we've sort of seen with most of American history, believe it or not. The myth of free trade has, again, been largely that, a myth. So, strongly agree. The freer the market, the freer the people. It, it depends, because free market in theory, when it's just the free exchange of goods between people with little to no government involvement, yes. But what this usually means is corporations steamrolling people. So, you know what? I'm going to go with a neutral on that one. It's better to maintain a balanced budget than ensure welfare for all citizens. In the past, I would have strongly agreed with that, but at this point, especially living in the United States, the global hub of finance, where our money is worth whatever we say it is, any any talk about inflation or devaluing of currency, I'd hate to say it, but it's become meaningless to us at this point. And honestly, with the direction things have gone, I think we all want our slice of the pie, so I'm going to have to disagree with that one. Publicly funded research is more beneficial than leaving it to the market. Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Some things you need the market competition, some things you need the corporations going against each other. Sometimes it's better for the state to do it. I think, for example, in military matters with military technology, the state should be in charge of researching that. So I'm going to slightly agree with that one. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. I pretty much already answered this with my other one, so strongly agree. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs. I'm going to slightly disagree on that one. It would be better if social programs were abolished in favor of private charity. Now, despite my defense of the welfare state just a couple questions ago, I actually do strongly agree that private charities are probably more efficient at helping the less fortunate than the government. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. The problem with our tax system isn't that the rich aren't paying enough. Our tax brackets, I think, could stand to be lowered for about everyone. It's just the problem of getting people to actually pay their tax, which is part of the reason I'm in favor of just a flat rate tax. No loopholes, no funny business about it. But I'm gonna slightly agree on that one. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. Absolutely. If you are on the verge of death and you want to leave something to one of your family members, I don't care whether it's a watch that's been in your family for 5 generations or whether it's millions upon millions of dollars. That's your absolute right to. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. I wouldn't say on the federal level, but I have no problem with it on the state and local level, so agree. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. I mean, at this rate, I really don't think it matters. Now, there's the problem where a lot of small businesses will get regulated into oblivion, whereas the multinational corporations operate freely with their army of lawyers. So it's a tough one. I'm really not sure. Those with a greater ability to pay should receive better health care. Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to have a public system, that just takes pressure off the public system. So I think that's a win for everyone. Quality education is a right of all people. It depends. Again, these questions are, I think, intentionally vague. Where What's the definition of quality education? You're going to go get a STEM degree, or you want to learn how to be a machinist and go to trade school. In my opinion, both are very valuable forms of education, as opposed to some of the uh, degrees you get out of these degree mills that we refer to as universities. I'm going to slightly agree because I think you need an educated population, whether they're going into, again, something very technical or something more advanced than that. So, slightly agree. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. No, they should not. There's no problem with working for somebody else who owns it. Um, now, admittedly, there are bad bosses, there's bad owners, but destroying the system of hierarchy and democratizing the workplaces is dumb as any other form of democracy, so strongly disagree. The UN should be abolished. Absolutely. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. Uh, no, not in the case of the United States, at least. Our foreign policy over the past 100 years has been an absolute disaster. I don't even need to go down the list, but uh, I mean, there's been a few cases where we've had a reason to intervene, but I'm actually going to have to go with a strong disagree on that one. I support regional unions such as the European Union. I do not support the European Union, but I do support regional unions. I think groups like Visegrad are good. And I have a problem with nationalism in the sense of micronationalism, where we need these little specks on the map rather than cooperation between cultural blocks. As we're seeing with Visegrad, as we're kind of seeing with the populist parties in Southern Europe. So it's a tough one. I really don't know how to answer this one, but I'm gonna go with slightly disagree just because they put the European Union in there. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. Absolutely. A united government would be beneficial to mankind. No. It is important to maintain peaceful relations rather than to further our strength. I think, especially at this point, as an American, somebody living in the United States, with how well shored up our defenses are, we could use a little diplomacy. That it wouldn't hurt. Wars does not need to be justified to other countries. I would slightly agree with that one. Military spending is a waste of money. Uh, Now, the rate at which we spend and the things we spend it on, yes. But as a concept, no, so slightly disagree. International aid is a waste of money, absolutely. My nation is great. Eh. The people, yes. The government, not so much. The political institutions, not so much. And that's not just a commentary on the current state of America. I think our political institutions were pretty flawed from the beginning. But there is something admirable about a frontiersman people, somebody who tamed a wild continent. So, yeah, research should be conducted on an international scale. Now, things like a certain global pandemic, I would agree, but it depends. Some think it's better to have the competition between nations, as is the competition in the market. Slightly agree. Government should be held accountable to the international community. Uh, no. I'm going to have to slightly disagree on that one. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. Well, in the hypothetical case in which I would never break the law because I'm a good law abiding citizen, I would strongly disagree with that because, number one, while I have no problem with authoritarian governments in principle, sometimes worse has to come to worse, and some of the greatest leaders we had came into power in a violent fashion, so I'm going to have to slightly disagree with that one. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. Absolutely. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. Seeing as our current nation's values boil down to GDP, endless war, and sodomy, unfortunately, I don't say that with a great deal of pleasure. I'm going to have to disagree on that one. It is very important to maintain law and order. Strongly agree. The general populace makes poor decisions. Absolutely. Physician assisted suicide should be legal. No. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. Now, you see, that's one of those other sort of situations. Now, the big example is always September 11th and the Patriot Act. And the reason they justify spying on all of us is because terrorists attacked us, which admittedly is a justified gut response, but when you think about it, all those terrorists came over between 1997 and 2001. The problem was in immigration, not our national security apparatus. Well, to the degree in which they didn't have the ability to spy on us, that wasn't the problem. The problem is the fact that we let in just about anyone, so I'm unsure on that one. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. The sort of mass surveillance programs we have actually do more harm than good. It creates a needle in the haystack effect, so strongly disagree on that past one. The existence of the state is a very threat to our liberty. Well, no. And I'm not an anarchist. I do not agree with the abolition of the state. And I also don't think liberty is the highest value a state must promote. So, just with the direction they're going in this question, strongly disagree. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. Slightly disagree. All authority should be questioned. Agreed. A hierarchical state is best. Absolutely. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion even if it's wrong. No. The stronger the leadership, the better. Agree. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Well, you see, that's a word trap if I've ever seen one, because it's become something of a religion. Not that I think that's a good thing. And I think where they're going with this question is they say that and they want you to think it's a good thing, so I'm going to go disagree on that one. Environmental regulations are essential, yes. A better world will come through automation, science, and technology. In paper, in theory, yes. But seeing as so much of the science is focused on just absolute depravity, like studying homosexuality in drafts, I'm inclined to say slightly agree because, look, there will be medical advancements, there will be technological advancements that make life objectively better. But again, at what cost? Children should be educated in religious or traditional values. Yes. Traditions are of no value on their own. Strongly disagree. Religion should play a role in government. Absolutely. Churches should be taxed the same way other institutions are taxed. No. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. Now, our abuse of the environment all across the world is concerning, but framing it as climate change, I'm going to have to disagree. It is important that we work as a united world to combat climate change. Disagree. Society was better many years ago than it was now. I think it wasn't great, but it was at least better, so I'm under no illusion about the 50s being some paradise, but socially, at least, there was still some cohesion. It is important to maintain the traditions of our past. Strongly agree. It is important that we think in the long term, beyond our lifespans. Absolutely. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. That's the kind of rhetoric that leads to a million legal immigrants a year and a million illegal immigrants a year. So, no. Drug use should be legalized or decriminalized. I think it should be decriminalized, focused more on the treatment of drug addicts rather than the punishment, at least in most cases. Some cases, I believe there is room for just punishment, so I'm going to slightly disagree. Same-sex marriage should be legal. No. No cultures are superior to others. No. Sex outside marriage is moral. Absolutely. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. In theory, yes, but I believe I've gone on tangents about this before. Seems like a lot of our migrants are adopting the hyper-liberal culture of the West, so I mean, they're doing a pretty good job assimilating, if you ask me. I think the problem is the culture they're assimilating into, but in theory, if I had a healthy, functional culture, strongly agree. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases, strongly agree. Gun ownership should be prohibited to those without a valid reason. Look, even despite my authoritarian leanings, one of the things I'm most libertarian on is the populace should be heavily armed. I think brings a great deal of social benefits, and it also keeps a nation well defended. I support universal single-payer healthcare. At this point, I don't really see any other way. I think we've dug ourselves into enough hole where I have to slightly agree with some sort of universal health care. Prostitution should be illegal, yes, and punished severely. Maintaining family values is essential, strongly agree. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous, strongly agree. Genetic modification is a force for good even on humans, strongly disagree. We should open our borders to immigration, absolutely not. Governments should be concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens, strongly disagree. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. Nobody treats everyone equally. Even as much they'd like to think they do not. It is important that we further my group's goals above all others. Now, to the point of immorality, to the point of ruthlessness, I wouldn't go there, but there is something to be said for the defending the interests of your own people, absolutely. So, I'm an economic centrist, I am patriotic on the diplomatic axis, I am authoritarian and very traditional. Oh boy, I'm a fascist. Uh, yeah, so I guess you can take that one to the bank. Now, that opposes to my previous results last year. Let me pull those up. As opposed to my results last year, which is right wing populism. Which is funny, the only thing that happened is I became more authoritarian and, yeah, in general, less tolerant. So there's that right there. And economically, I think I actually moved, yeah, further to the right, which, oh, no, I moved further to the left. So that was probably part of it. Um, I took this a few months ago, not on video, and I got theocratic distributionism, which I think is probably a more accurate description. But these positions right here are generally good layout. But fascism, I'm not sure whether I would call it that. But it's a good test overall. I'll leave the link in the description. I think that was a good time. I think we had some fun there. So I'll see you guys when we do the war report, and goodbye.